the Saturday, you've done the Saturday already for the photo ID.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so we'll have to announce that.
9 to 3, yes. Okay.
Good morning. Yep, I wish there were more people here. This is going to be pretty important information, particularly not just for our independent residents, but I believe the impact of the new photo ID laws is going to be greater on our healthcare residents. But you'll hear more about that, so you'll understand the new rules. I did want to kick it off by providing a quote by the civil rights icon and U.S. Representative John Lewis, and this is what he says about voting. The vote is precious. It is almost sacred. It is the most powerful, nonviolent tool we have in our democracy. So please, vote, get out the vote. Don't care how you vote, just vote. Anyway, just to give you a little history on the photo ID law here in North Carolina, it was actually first attempted in 2013 and ruled unconstitutional. But then in 2018, it was added, the ID requirement, because it went out as a referendum to the North Carolina voters, and I think about 55% of them voted in favor of it. But then it was held up in court, so it was never fully implemented based on racial discrimination as well as unconstitutional to our state constitution. But earlier this year, our current North Carolina Supreme Court reversed a previous ruling by our prior North Carolina Supreme Court, so now it is in place. And the 2023 municipal elections are the first time that it'll be fully enacted. So think of it, I mean, every election is very important, particularly your local elections, but think of it as almost a practice session, if you will, before 2024, which of course will be another presidential election. But as they say, the devil is in the details. It's one thing to say that you want a photo ID because you believe of the integrity issues with our voting, but it's another thing to figure out the actual law and regulations that will go in place to enact it. So today, I'm very pleased to have Dell Parker, our elections director of Scotland County, to help us navigate those rules. So you'll be aware of that before you actually go vote in the municipal elections this year. I also want to say I've set up a table, you can call it the front or the back, but you'll see a sample ballot. We're in District 1, correct? If I say, yeah, Scotia Village is in District 1. So the contested will be the mayor, but actually the person for our city council is uncontested. And so that's what you'll be voting on. But we also have materials on the photo ID, as well as if you want to vote by absentee, we have an application to do that, as well as, well, if you do vote by absentee, how do I show a photo ID? So there's also rules for that, and Dell will walk us through those, as well as if you don't have a photo ID, there is an exception form, and she'll also talk about the exceptions to not having a photo ID. And as I said, this particularly impacts our residents in healthcare. I actually talked with Ashley, our nursing director, probably 2-3 months ago, just to get a feel. This is anecdotal evidence of how many of her residents she thought had a valid photo ID, and she only thought about 30%. So, and they are typically the ones who want to vote absentee. So this will be important. If you vote absentee, you'll want to hear this, but also you may want to share this with your friends or family that are in healthcare, so people are aware of this. And then, what was I going to say? Oh, this is on YouTube. Just so everybody is aware, it's being recorded. It's live, as well as you'll be able to access it afterwards, too. So that's another good way that if you want to share it with your friends or family, that you can get them access to the YouTube recording of this on the Scotia Village YouTube. So with that, I will, what's going on here? You get... Oh, all right. Sorry, I got a pop-up box here, but it doesn't show up there. So I will now turn it over to Dell. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everybody. First of all, I want to tell you thank you so much for allowing me to be here with y'all today. I do want to tell y'all that, I am the director of Scotland County Board of Elections, but we have this saying across our state, there's 100 counties. And so our saying is that we're not a county of one, we're actually a team of 101. And what that means is all 100 Board of Elections, we work together along with the State Board of Elections. And by us communicating together, we try to get the exact same information out to all 100 counties. So the presentation that y'all are going to see up there today, I did part of it, but a bunch of it came from other counties that I kind of cut and pasted, so I definitely want to give credit to the other Board of Elections across our state. But I just kind of want to let you know, as Ms. Robley did say, we are going to be requiring a photo ID for the upcoming election. So what my plans today is to try to cover with you the who's, the whys, the whens, the wheres, the whats, and the hows. So, in reference to who has to show a photo ID, every voter that is presenting themselves to vote in the state of North Carolina will have to show a photo ID, regardless of how they are voting, if it's election day, if it's one-stop early voting, or if it is absentee by mail. The only ones that are not going to be required to show a photo ID is our Uvacava voters, which is our military. Now, the reason that we're having to place this photo ID law into place is because of Section Law 2018-129, which it was put on an issue on the 2018 election ballot, and 55.49% of the North Carolina voters actually voted for it, when 44.51 voters voted against it. And as Ms. Robley stated, it went through courts, and now it's at the point where we've got to implement it full force. So starting with the 2023 municipal elections is when it's actually going into effect. 2 counties in our state have already had primary elections where they've had to show photo ID, which was Lee County and Mecklenburg County. But we're going to start here in Scotland County with our November 2023 municipal elections. Our absentee by mail is going to actually start on October the 6th, and that's going to anyone that's interested in wanting to vote by mail, they can actually start requesting those ballots as of October 6th. Our one-stop early voting is going to begin on October the 19th. That's going to run through November the 4th. Anyone that's interested in wanting to vote our one-stop early voting, it will be at the Annex Building located at 231 East Cronley Street. Our hours are 8 to 5, and that we've got that Saturday in there, which is November the 4th, and that's going to be 8 to 3. And then Election Day will be November the 7th. Now, for the residents that live here, if you do not vote absentee by mail or one-stop early voting, your precinct will be the National Guard Armory. Just to kind of give you like some history as to where photo ID is required, there is 34 states that require the ID. 23 of those states is photo ID, and 11 states are non-photo IDs, as long as it's just an ID. And then there's 16 states plus the DC that do not require an ID at all. Now, when it comes to what type of IDs that you can use, there's a lot of IDs that have been approved. Actually, at the county level, the State Board of Elections sent us 13 and a half pages of approved IDs that we can accept. And the reason that list is so long is because agents could actually reach out to the State Board of Elections and submit their ID to say, could you approve our photo ID? So there was a lot of tribal IDs that got accepted and a lot of colleges that got accepted. When it comes to IDs, they must be valid or unexpired, or been expired for at least 1 year or less. Now, with that said, just let me bring you up to date on, if you have a North Carolina driver's license, and that driver's license was a valid photo ID when you turned the age of 65, and that ID has now expired. Since it was valid when you turned the age of 65, then that will be an acceptable photo ID that we can accept for your voting purposes. Now, say for an example, you've just moved here and you've got an out-of-state driver's license. As long as you have registered within 90 days of the election and that out-of-state ID was valid, then we can accept that ID. Okay? Now, like I said earlier, we've got like 13 and a half pages of accepted IDs that we can take. It's military ID, veteran IDs, tribal cards, some public assistant cards. The military ID, the veterans IDs, the tribal cards, those do not have an expiration requirement on it, because some of those cards don't even have an expiration date on it at all. But as long as you've got one of those cards, we can accept that card for a photo ID. As far as local IDs that have been approved, our St. Andrews College, they did submit their college ID. So for any of those students over there, we can accept their college ID as their acceptable photo ID card. But if you don't have an ID, that's okay, because you can come see us at the Board of Elections and we're going to give you a photo ID card for free. If you don't want to come to the Board of Elections, you can go to the North Carolina DMV and request a North Carolina ID card, and that ID card is free as well. But keep in mind, if you go through the North Carolina DMV, they may have some requirements of some documents that you have to show to them. If you come to the Board of Elections, there are no requirements really. You just got to be a registered voter. If you're not a registered voter, we're going to allow you to get registered. So say, for an example, you come to our Board of Elections and you're already registered. We're going to give you a form, which is called a voter photo ID request form. You will fill that form out, and on that form, it's going to ask you to give your name, your date of birth, the last 4 digits of your Social Security number. We're going to verify that you're in our system. Once we do that verification, then we're going to take you in our back room, we're going to snap your photo, and that's what your photo ID card will look like from our office. That card's going to be valid for 10 years. Now, say for an example that you are not registered. You can still come to our office and request that ID, but what's going to happen is you're going to first have to fill out a voter registration form. We will then hold your ID card because you have to go through that mail verification. So what will happen is you can come to our office, you can register, we can go ahead and take your photo ID, we can get you in our system, and as soon as your mailing address has been validated, then we can throw your ID in the mail to you.
I'm sorry, Dell, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
My question is, we do have new residents at Scotia who may have moved in from outside of Scotland County, still North Carolina, maybe out of state, but assume it's North Carolina. So they still need to re-register because it's a change of address for them if they have not done that so
That's right.
already, like maybe through the DMV, maybe they've already done it. But if they haven't, is it still the same process that if it's a re-registration, if you know what I'm saying, because of a change of address, still go through that same process as if they're not registered? Or
It unfortunately for us, it is, but if it's in this window of this upcoming election, as long as it's that North Carolina driver's license, it doesn't matter what county, because it's North Carolina, so and they've moved within the last 90 days, we could take that ID. Now, yes, sir.
People in healthcare, they have a card like this. Couldn't that be accepted?
It could be if the employer sends that ID to the State Board of Elections and it has to get pre-approved.
And Dale, correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding, Ron, is one of the requirements, except for those exceptions that Dell pointed out, is that the cards have to have an expiration date on them. And I also want to add that UNC Pembroke students and employees, that ID is also acceptable.
Now, our cards, when we issue them to you, like I said, it will be valid for 10 years. But say, for an example, you left your wallet in your pocket and your pants got washed and it got destroyed, or you lost your card, we can give you a replacement card free of charge. It's just that we won't be able to take a new photo of you. We will be able to just use the photo that's already in our system, but we can issue you a new card if you happen to lose your card. Another thing is say that a female gets married and she's already got one of our cards, she can come in and update her name, and we can actually replace her, their card free of charge as well. Now, when someone comes in to vote, what we've got to do is we're just verifying that that is the person that is standing in front of us. We are not to be looking at the address to see if the address on that ID matches the address in our system. We're just looking for that reasonable resemblance. When it comes to the name, we're just trying to make sure it's if it's Mary Jane Smith on that ID, on that photo ID, and in our system it's just Mary Smith, that we know that that's the same person. Sometimes people they don't use their middle name when they register with us, but we are able to validate them through that last 4 digits of their Social Security card. So we're not required to look at that address. We're just looking at the photo ID to make sure that that is the person that is standing in front of us. And like I said earlier, anyone that's 65 or older, they can use an expired form of an ID as long as it was valid when they did turn the age of 65. So say that somebody, they come in to vote in person, you're going to be asked to state your name, your address, and if it's a primary, we're going to ask you to state your party, and then we're going to ask you to present that ID. We're going to just look at that ID, we're going to verify that it's you, we're going to hand you your ID back, and then we're going to carry you through the regular voting process, print an ATV form, have you to sign that form, and we're going to send you over to the ballot station. But under no circumstances do we ever turn a voter away in the state of North Carolina. Anyone that comes into our precinct, say that they came in and they don't have the required ID to vote, we're going to offer them a provisional. Now, a difference in a regular ballot and a provisional ballot is that regular ballot, you're going to put it in that tabulator and it's going to be counted that day as soon as you insert that ballot. Now, a provisional ballot is when you're going to put your ballot in an envelope. You'll seal the envelope, and then those will come back to our office, and we will research those before our canvass day. Now, say that you voted a provisional because you did not have that required ID. That's what you will put on the form saying that's why you voted that provisional ballot. But after you leave that day, you can, between that election day and before canvass, bring us a copy of your ID, and that will make your provisional count. Okay? Now, from my understanding, after election day, I can start reissuing IDs again in my office. So say that somebody came, they voted a provisional because they did not have that required photo ID. The day or two after elections, they can come to my office, request the photo ID. We can issue them that photo ID, then they can turn around and give us a copy of that ID, and that would satisfy that ID requirement to make their ballot count.
Sorry, one more question
That's
on
okay.
that. There are some exceptions, though, with provisional ballot that they don't have to show up between Election Day and Canvass Day.
That's right, and that's going to be my next slide.
Sorry.
That's okay.
But before we go on, do people understand what Canvass Day is? Maybe if you just give us a brief.
Okay. Canvass Day is actually the day that we make all of our results final. We actually certify our results. So between Election Day and Canvass Day, what we have to do is we have to verify that every ballot is accounted for, that every provisional is researched. We try to do everything that we can to make any provisional that has been cast be able to be counted. So, say that our records show that someone is not registered, but on the provisional envelope, they say, but I did register, I registered at the DMV. So we have a system with the State Board of Elections where we can put these names in the system, and it's an overnight process. And then we can pull up a DMV report the next day, and that report will show us if they actually did register at the DMV. And for some reason, their registration form just did not make it to the Board of Elections office. So we do a lot of things on the back end to make sure that everything is kind of like a check and balance between Election Day and Canvass, to make sure that everything that can be counted is counted, anything that should not be counted is not counted, and then the board comes in, they verify all of our information, and then the board will actually certify our results, and that's always called Canvass, and it always happens at 11 o'clock meeting.
Dell, how far out from election day is canvass?
10 days,
10 days?
10 days.
Always 10?
Yes. There is exceptions, and I will tell you, like with this, laws are forever changing, so I'm gonna tell you that right now it's 10 days. I can't tell you what it's gonna be, in 2024, but for this election, it's 10 days.
The most impressive time, I've been there twice, just to watch people do the work. It's absolutely impressive.
Well, thank you. Before every election, per general statutes, we do have to have training. And when we get a precinct official, we actually say that they become part of our family. And once they become part of our family, we try never to let them go, ever. I did see Miss Gilbert walk in. She is one of our precinct officials, and she's been with us for many, many years. And we have to carry, no matter how many years you've worked, you still have to go through a training prior to every election that we have. So I do appreciate you noticing that they work very well in Scotland County.
It's America at its best.
That's right. Thank you so much. Say, for an example, if you do not come out and you vote in person, which I think, a lot here may actually do the absentee by mail. The first thing that you're going to do to vote by mail is you need to fill out that absentee ballot request form. And Ms. Robley did say that there are some on the back table. You can also pick up one at our office, and they're on our website and the state board's website. So, whichever way is the most convenient for you. You fill out the form, you get the form to us, and then what's going to happen is we're going to verify that you're a registered voter, and once we verify all that, we're going to send you a ballot in the mail that you can vote in the comfort of your home. Now, this year, things are going to be a little bit different because of the photo ID requirement. So we're going to actually send you a ballot. We're going to send you a return envelope for you to send that envelope back to us. We're going to enclose instructions. There's going to be a clear sleeve for you to put your photo ID in, or either the exceptions form. You will need to get 2 witnesses to sign your envelope. The 2 witnesses basically are saying that you voted your own ballot. If you don't want to do the 2 witnesses, you can get a notary. But the witnesses will have to print their name, their address, and they will need to sign the envelope saying that they did witness that you voted your own ballot. And you'll insert all of that, and then you're going to return it back to the Board of Elections prior to the deadline. Oh. There is a form called an ID exceptions form that someone can fill out if they do not have the required ID. On that form, there's quite a few reasons listed. They're listed there. It's a lack of transportation to be able to go get a copy of an ID. It's due to a disability or an illness, a lack of a birth certificate or other documents that you may need to obtain an ID. And that's kind of like through the DMV, because I said here, at the Board of Elections office, you do not need those documents. Say that due to a work schedule, you was not able to go get a copy of your ID, or your ID was lost or stolen. Say, for an example, you've went through the DMV and you applied for your ID and you just have not received it yet. Or you were unable to attain a copy of your ID. Also, we do have people due to religious reasons, they don't get they don't get their photo taken, so that's a reason on the form. And if our state has been declared a national disaster within 100 days of an election, that's on there as well. At this point, do I have any questions?
And sort of to reiterate, unless you have, if you have one of those reasonable impediments, and you check the box or whatever
That's right.
it is, I do have those forms, at least for absentee ballot back there, and you sign it, then you don't have to, how should I put this? If you were voting in person and you had a reasonable impediment, there's also an exception form that you will have.
That's right.
If you're in person. If you don't have that, then that would be, you would have to come back before Canvas
That's right.
with a photo ID, just to make that clear for people.
Just so that y'all are aware, we are issuing free voter photo ID cards in our office. We're there from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., Monday to Friday. You do not need to have an appointment to come. We are doing a voter ID outreach day this Saturday. We're going to be there from 9 to 3. Our goal for the whole day is to do no election work except for issuing IDs. So, even though you may have your driver's license, feel free, come get a voter photo ID from us. That way, you're not going to take a risk of handing one of my precinct officials your driver's license and, unfortunately, them forgetting to handing it back to you. That way, if you leave your voter photo ID card, you haven't lost a major ID card. We can throw that in the mail to you. We will even put your driver's license back in the mail to you. But, if you want one of our IDs, it's free. So, come take advantage of it. Let us take your photo and let us hand you an ID right there on the spot.
Dell, think skilled nursing, do you have a mobile team that could come in and photograph people and give them their IDs on site?
I do have a laptop set up with a camera and a printer. At this point, I'm just waiting on the state board to give us the guidelines of being able to bring that system out into the public to be able to do that. It could happen. We do have a meeting with the state board every 2 weeks called the Huddle, and that's where they give us a lot of information. We were told during a huddle that they were working on some guidelines as to what we can and cannot do. I think it's something we are going to be able to do in the future. How fast that's going to happen, I'm not sure. But we do have the equipment and we're ready. We're just kind of waiting on the green light from the state board of giving us the guidelines of what we've got to do. Because to be able to issue the ID, we are going into a state board of elections program. So we're going to need guidance as to the do's and the don'ts when we get that out in the public.
Second question, is there going to be a MAT team that would be available for skilled nursing?
There is a MAT team.
Do we have to ask for it?
You do.
No, we do this.
Yeah. And we've been to Scotia, and we'll gladly come back, so.
Good.
Sorry, I have a question. I just want to stress that if you do vote absentee, and you do have to send a copy of your photo voter ID, please do not send the original. The other question I had is, I know some people have expressed, particularly I think elderly people, concern about identity theft. I mean, that's an issue everywhere and it's getting more and more so. So they're concerned that they've got a photo of their ID, stick it in an envelope. You may hand deliver it, but it may often go through the U.S. Postal Service. Could you talk a little bit about safeguards that once that envelope gets to you, what happens, as well as I have heard that we will need 3 stamps. Is that true?
It may be 3 stamps, I don't know. My ballots are due today, so I can actually put everything up on a waiter to see exactly how much it's going to cost to return it. Everything in reference to the elections, the envelopes are marked official election material. It's supposed to throw a red flag up for the United States Postal Service. I can't tell you, because I know there's been some issues with the mail, so I'm not gonna try to sugarcoat anything. But I will tell you that, me personally, I think you would be okay putting it in the mail. I think it would make it to our office. Once it gets to our office, only election staff is allowed to touch that. No one from the public. So if anyone does a public records request, that ID is not public record. It will stay with the absentee envelope. So, and we have a retention schedule where we do have to keep that for 22 months, but, we have to do that with a bunch of our election stuff. So, I don't think you've got to worry about identity theft through the Board of Elections. It's my personal opinion. I think everybody, may have their own opinion on that topic, but I do think that it would be safe for you to vote by mail. I do have a little short video that I'm really hoping is getting ready to work. Okay, because this is what popped up.
It looks like you're connected, right?
All right, so if I go here, I go.
I lost Helen, so that she's my tech person. Ah, she's coming.
I'm not sure if my video is going to play.
It should.
And she needs internet connection. but it looks like
Do I need to just hit that?
Yeah. Oh, well, it may not let you. Whoops, don't want to do that. Nope.
Well, we
hang
can
on.
go through it that way, I think.
We can just click right here.
Oh, that's what I tried.
That's not what we want.
While they're working on that, again, I've got forms on the table as you go out the door, including all those dates and stuff that you saw, so don't worry about memorizing those. And if you have a friend or family member that you think they would like this information as well, please feel free to take more than one copy. We also have voter registration forms as well, so most people who live at Scotia are registered to vote. That's usually not the issue. It's a case of where they may have a change, such a change in address.
It's funny, it won't let me go back.
But you can if you are a customer of the North Carolina DMV, you can always go to their website.
This way. All right, hang on, because it minimized out of there, so.
I'll also put a plug in for the League of Women Voters in North Carolina while I'm here. We again are continuing our free online voter guide. It's called vote411.org, and I have bookmarks and postcards back there, so you don't have to memorize that either if you want to take those away. And we are doing it for the Scotland County municipal elections. And what does that mean? That means we have gone out to each candidate with a series of questions. If it's the same, whatever position they're running for, it's the same questions for each candidate, requesting them to respond to those questions. Unfortunately, not everyone does respond to us, but we follow up on it many times to get them to respond. So that's a way of getting information about the candidates. But also we have all this other information that you've heard today too, as well as links to like the State Board of Elections. You can get linked to Scotland County Board of Elections and other key websites to help you.
Go. See if this will do it.
I think this may work.
We'll try. Oops, come back. Oh, it's gonna do it again. Okay, hang on a second. Gotta change the settings. Come on. No. It's ready to go.
Beginning in 2023, a photo ID will be required to
It still don't want to do it.
beginning
Try one last thing. Okay, there you go.
In 2023, a photo ID will be required to vote in North Carolina. For most voters, this will simply mean showing their North Carolina driver's license at the polls. There are many other identification options that voters can use to vote. These options are a U.S. passport or U.S. passport card, a state ID from the Department of Motor Vehicles, a North Carolina voter photo ID card, which can be obtained for free from a county board of elections, a college or university student ID that has been approved by the State Board of Elections, or an employee ID from a state or local government or charter school that has been approved by the State Board of Elections. Voters who have registered to vote in North Carolina within 90 days of the election are also allowed to present a driver's license or non-operator's ID from another state, District of Columbia, or U.S. territory. Voters aged 65 or older can use unexpired or expired versions of any of these IDs, so long as they were unexpired on the voter's 65th birthday. For all other voters, these IDs must be unexpired or expired 1 year or less in order to be accepted. There are 3 additional types of photo IDs that will be accepted at the polls, regardless of whether the ID contains an expiration or issuance date. They are a federally issued military or veteran ID card, a tribal enrollment card issued by a state or federally recognized tribe, or an ID card for a public assistance program that was issued by the state of North Carolina or a U.S. government agency. So what will the voting process look like with the new photo ID requirement? When you go to the polls to vote during early voting or on election day, the election official at the check-in station will ask you for your last name, followed by your first name and your residence address. Upon finding you in the voter registration database, the election official will ask for your photo ID. Election officials will confirm that you bear a reasonable resemblance to your photo ID. In other words, when the officials look at the photo on the ID you provide, they will decide if the photo looks similar enough to you that you're the person on the ID. Election officials are required to bear in mind that there are many reasons that a person's appearance could change. They will also verify the name on the photo ID to ensure that it is the same or substantially similar to the name in your voter registration record. If a reasonable resemblance cannot be established by the check-in operator, supervising election officials from the polling place will meet and conduct a challenge hearing. If they do not unanimously agree that the photo does not meet the reasonable resemblance requirements, you will receive a regular ballot. Even if the supervising election officials unanimously determine that your photo does not meet the reasonable resemblance requirements, you will still have the opportunity to vote provisionally and will be provided additional instructions on how to satisfy the photo ID requirements prior to the county canvass. There are specific instances where voters will not be required to show a photo ID to vote. Voters who have a religious objection to being photographed, who are victims of a natural disaster within 100 days of the election, as declared by the President of the United States or the Governor of North Carolina, or have a reasonable impediment preventing them from showing a photo ID, can complete an ID exception form and vote provisionally. Voters that do not qualify for any of the exceptions and cannot provide an acceptable photo ID at the time of voting will be offered a provisional ballot. After voting, an acceptable photo ID will need to be brought to the County Board of Elections office by the close of business on the day prior to the county canvass. The ID provided will be evaluated the same way a voter's ID is evaluated at the voting site. Do you bear a reasonable resemblance to your photo ID? And is the name on the photo the same or substantially similar to your name in the voter registration record? If you vote at home through absentee by mail, you will be asked to include a photocopy of one of the acceptable forms of ID or a completed ID exception form with your return ballot. For additional information on voter photo ID, visit the State Board of Elections website at ncsbe.gov or call us at 919-814-0700. You can also scan this QR code to visit the State Board's voter ID page. We look forward to seeing you at the polls.
Yeah, that's all that I have. If you have any questions, I will gladly stay and answer any questions you may have. I did good, didn't I? Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. It's been very helpful. And I just complimented her on the video as well. I assume that came from the State Board of Elections. But for something that short, I thought they did a great job covering everything. So thank you very much, and please spread the word.
Y'all just remember, we're at the Board of Elections. There are no dumb questions. So, anything that we can help you with whatsoever, please feel free to come by our office or call us. Like I said, we're there 8 to 4. And this Saturday, just remember, we are having a voter outreach day. So we're going to be there from 9 to 3 doing nothing but issuing voter photo IDs. Thank y'all again so much for having me. Y'all have a great day. Thank you.